You the king of the South.
Indubitably.
You claimed it. You owned it. You stated it. You made it happen.
Unequivocally.
Yes.
What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Peace and love, party people. This is Talib Kweli, the BKMC, the MCEO. You are now in tune with the People's Party. This is another wonderful episode. How y'all doing? I got the lovely and talented Jasmin Leigh in the house, as usual. And as always, give it up for Jasmin Leigh.
What's up?
What's up, Jasmin?
I'm chilling, man.
You just got back from ATL?
Yes, I just got back from ATL, so I'm super excited.
Right, because today we are taking you to Atlanta, Georgia. By way of People's Party, we have today, as a guest, we have an icon, an institution in the South, but an institution in hip hop. We have a businessman. He is the grand hustler. He is the rubber band man. He has 10 albums from I'm Serious all the way to Dime Trap, but beyond that, he's doing acting. He's making all types of moves. His portfolio is very motherfucking diversified.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tip, aka T.I. What's up?
Yes!
Man. Yo, that's love.
Favorite in the house.
Bro, I need you to introduce me everywhere.
I didn't come out like with the cape, put the cape on you like
Nah,
OJ and
man,
Brown.
see, I brought my own.
I love the cape.
I appreciate it, though.
What's up, Tip? How you feeling, bro?
Man, I'm coolin', man.
Cheers.
Yeah, to love, life, and prosperity.
Every day, all
Cheers.
day.
All right, clink. There you go.
There you go. Well, yeah. I mean, first, before we get into this, I gotta say that you're very famous for being Tip, and you're international household star. But just as a lyricist, lyricist to lyricist, you are an incredible MC, brother.
Man, thank you.
You know, and I'm honored to know you. And people always get into these conversations about lyricists and the South. People think the South don't have lyricists. That was a
Sure.
conversation when you first came out
Yeah.
that was real.
Right.
But because of people like you, that conversation has largely been squashed.
Man, thank you. I mean, I'm humbled. I'm, definitely appreciative, and it means a lot, you know what I'm saying, coming from someone who I hold in high regard as a lyricist, and a trailblazer.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
I mean, when I say trailblazer, I mean somebody who made the sacrifices to step aside, do something different, you know what I'm saying, because they knew it was creative and they knew it would push the culture forward, whether they thought it would sell records or not. You dig what I'm saying?
Yes, indeed.
So I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you. You are highly appreciated around here. Let's start by taking it way back. You were from a generation of rappers who were independent, who were hustling records out the back of your car.
Sure.
In the South, y'all had to do that. Y'all didn't have access to the coast. And I feel like it's a defining characteristic of a lot of artists from the South. Could you speak on that a little bit?
I mean, we basically had to get it out the mud because, you know what I'm saying, like back when we were coming out, if it didn't come through the gatekeepers of New York City, then it wasn't looked at as validated. You know what I'm saying? So in order for us to be seen and recognized, we had to move numbers before you even heard of us. You know what I mean? So that's what we took that page out of like Master P's book, or Lil J and Rap-A-Lot's book, or Suave House's book. It's cats that was moving through the chitlin circuit, you know what I mean, getting $10,000 a show before anybody from New York even heard who they was, like Ball and MJG. So seeing that, I went from trying to get a record deal to saying fuck a record deal and just moving on my own. Then the record deal came.
Right. Now, with your first record deal, I remember meeting you in New York, I think at like BB King's at like a Wu-Tang Clan show. You know what I'm saying? At that point, on a national level, you had this record, I'm Serious, with Beanie Man.
Right.
And Beanie Man, of course, is a legendary
Absolutely.
reggae artist. But it didn't, from a consumer and a fan standpoint, seem to fit what I thought Tip was going to bring.
Right.
That first single.
That's true.
And so at some point, you revamped.
I did.
And you got out of that deal.
I did.
And you came back. You had Pimp Squad Click before then, right?
Right.
But then you put out that Pimp Squad Click record.
The In the Streets, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened with my first album? I think the intention for the first project, I'm Serious, it was to show, just as you just noted, that people from the South, people from Atlanta could like rap with the best of them. That we could rap over any beat.
Right.
We could do any kind of music, that it wasn't just booty shaking and crunk music. So that was my intention for I'm Serious. That's why I chose different beats. You know what I'm saying? I spoke on different topics. I wanted it to be diverse. I wanted it to feel like, you know, it could have came from anybody. In doing that, I believe the identity of who T.I. is kind of went over a lot of people's head. They felt like the image of the person should match with the feel or the vibe of the music. And when they saw me and heard my music, it didn't compute. You know what I'm saying? It was too many things for me to be who I am and look how I look and be from where I'm from. So that went over a lot of people's heads, and I understood that. So my first project, although it may be critically acclaimed and appreciated now, it didn't do as well. And even though it didn't do as well, we recognized no matter where we went, there was this one song that everybody identified with, that everybody felt like spoke to them. And it was a record that nobody thought would ever be played on the radio or get any kind of notable attention. It wasn't Pussy Pumper #1 produced by Pharrell. It wasn't I'm Serious featuring Beanie Man. It wasn't Meet Me at the Hotel featuring Too Short. It was Dope Boys and Trap Niggas produced by DJ Toon.
Right.
That song and Still Ain't Forgave Myself, those two records made everybody say, yo, who is this kid? You know what I mean? And from that moment, I saw what I needed to do. I said, okay, well, if they love Dope Boys and Trap Niggas, that's really just me paying homage to my childhood, to the lifestyle I just left out of. So I'm going to give them a whole album of that, and we going to call it trap music.
Right.
And, you know, subsequently, I wasn't receiving the attention from the label that I felt I deserved. And I asked them, I said, well, you know, since I'm operating as an independent anyway, and I'm already doing all the work, investing in myself, and I'm still splitting it, getting the minority share with y'all give me a, I think it was $2 million, a $2 million deal. Or was it $1 million deal? Might have been $1 million and some change. Give me $1 million, whatever the number was. An astronomical number for someone who had moderate success at the time. So I said, so give me this much money or just let me go. And so we had a meeting, and you know, we broke from the meeting, and they said, well, we come back, we'll make our decision. L.A. Reid did. I think it was L.A. Reid and, was it Mark Pitts? Or it's L.A. Reid and someone. So we broke, went to lunch, came back, me and Jay, and they said, okay, well, I'm gonna give you what you want. And I looked at Jay and said, yeah. He said, I'm gonna let you go. I said, oh. So at that point, I was independent, a free agent, but I had just dropped 24s, and I don't think he knew it yet. I had just dropped 24s, and it was getting hotter and hotter every day. So it's like I'm working my own record, and I'm a free agent. And when everybody heard that I had been released, it started a bit of a bidding war. But I ended up getting what I asked for, a plus song from Atlantic. Whatever I asked LA for, I got that plus song from Atlantic, and a better deal with more equity.
That's pimping the game, brother.
Well.
That's Pimp Squad Click. So trap music, trap music is like not just a genre of hip hop, but it's sort of the defining genre of hip hop. Like if niggas in the trap in Atlanta's not listening to you, you're not really popping on a national scale or global scale in hip hop.
That makes sense.
At this point.
That makes sense.
You are sort of a founding father of trap music, and you have the Trap Museum now.
Trap Music Museum, I do. Yeah,
talk to me about the term trap music, where it started, and and how we got to this point.
Well, the term trap, as a slang word, has existed for as long as like the 80s, 90s, early 90s at least.
Like the first time I heard it referred to the way you heard it is Big Rube on the Outkast records.
Yeah, Big Rube, Big Boy, Cujo, you know what I mean? So many people before me had said trap in a record. You dig what I'm saying? But the words trap and music had never been combined to describe a sound before August 19th, 2003, which is when my album Trap Music was released. So, of course, you know, people rapped about drug dealing before. We had Master P, Ghetto Dope, even before as far back as NWA, you know, Dope Man. But the word trap and the word music had never been combined to describe a sound until August 19th, 2003, when my second album was released. Not to discredit or diminish any contributions from any of the other founding forefathers or any of the other contributors that made it that made it what it is today. You know what I mean? I think everybody should get they just due, and they've earned their respect. You know, and I don't think I by myself could have taken it from where it was when I conceived it to where it is today. So I don't want to seem as though that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But to ask where it came from,
That's where it came from.
August 19th.
Right. You got to start date. That's ground
I
zero.
promise
That's
you that's going to be on a trivia game, and I'm going to get it right, and I'm going to win some money.
Right on.
Now, you've been very vocal about lessons from the trap, and lessons from street life, and lessons from drug dealing, and how you've been able to apply it to life, and how you've been able to apply it to business.
Certainly.
And you're very similar to Jay-Z in that way, because and which is why I think he lists you as an influence, and why he's been, I feel like from the time you came out, Jay has reached out and,
Sure.
you know what I'm saying? So, and that's something
That's
I'm
the
noticed as a
homie.
fan.
That's the homie. I mean, he's imparted considerable wisdom and taking his time out, you know, to pour his experience into my cup time and time again. It's definitely a valued relationship. You know what I'm saying? I consider him somewhat of a mentor.
Yeah, I think we all do, but you got a unique experience, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, what lessons do you think, you know, I mentioned the lessons, but could you share for us some of the lessons that you feel like are important that you've learned from trapping that have been able to apply?
It's so many. It's so many. I think that's most people's first introduction into entrepreneurship. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah, for us, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's subsidization for so many of us. But now for me, I was an entrepreneur even before I got to the crack game. Like, you know what I'm saying? The crack game was attractive to me because I was already an entrepreneur, and I just saw that it had better margins than my present industry. So I started out selling candy. You know what I mean? I used to sell candy, man, in fourth, fifth, sixth grade. I started out in fourth grade because I traveled from Atlanta to New York every summer to visit my pops. My pops lived in New York, so I spent all my summers in New York, Upper Manhattan, and in Harlem. So I would go from Section 8 and the ghetto to stay with my pops in the summer. And when I left every summer, he'd peel me out about $300-400, send me back. So by the second, third summer, I was starting to think like, okay, so how can I stretch this money from the time
It's that grand hustle.
for the time I get off this plane to the next time I see him, which is gonna be Christmas. So I would take $100 and my grandmama would take me to Sound Warehouse. We'd buy loaves of candy in bulk, you know what I mean, Schnuckles and honey buns and now and laters and all kinds of shit. And I package it up. My goal was to make $20 a day. I figure if I make $20 a day, that's $100 a week. If I make $100 a week, then I'll be able to handle my business, do my, you know, get my little tools and fuse for myself until I get to see Pops again in December. And so that's, you know, but I went from $20 a day to $30 a day to $50 a day to where when I got to when I got to 5th grade, I was giving my teacher, Mr. Flint, at Grove Park, I gave him a snicker a day to turn his head while he let me sell candy.
Wow.
And in 6th grade, I had lockers on each hallway and other cats working for me, like selling candy. I gave them a $25 a pack of candy, and if they sold all of it, they get $5.
Where did you learn this mentality from? You just were born with it?
I needed money. I needed the need.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And when I got the money in my hand,
Necessity
right?
is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know
I mean,
what I
like
mean?
you didn't have like someone that you
No.
saw make it. You just figured it out on your own. Like, oh, I'm gonna
Well, my
get this.
daddy had a candy store.
Oh, okay.
I will say that.
Okay.
My daddy did have a candy store in Harlem.
So you modeled after his.
And I did like candy. You know what I'm saying? But he used to take me
It sells itself.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
it
He used to take me to the warehouse in New York, you know what I mean, in Harlem, where all the people who got candy stores and stuff go to buy their candy and they sodas.
So you saw
and stuff.
distribution from the
right.
top. Right.
I saw wholesale.
Wholesale, right.
So I was like, wait a minute. So when I buy a 9 later from the store, it cost me this much. And then when my daddy go and get it, he get the big boxes.
Yeah.
So I need to go get the big boxes.
Right. Right.
And then I bust them down and take them to school and sell them individually. So, you know, I didn't really know what cost, you know, what the margins was at the time.
you were doing.
But I saw him doing that. So when I started thinking, what can I do? Then, you know what I'm saying, I said, okay, well, I just go get me some candy and sell it.
That's smart. And like how you were saying, talking about how street knowledge and book smarts, whatever, when you already grow up and you're hustling candy on the street and you start going to school and you learn economics and learn how to flip that candy, you already have that street knowledge and that's how it comes together and you're a boss.
Sure, but see, that brings me to the next part of the story. So when I was in 6th grade, I had those different, you know, tentacles of my operation, but I also had a different form of distribution. Okay, so I started getting people to steal starter coats at the locker room and Jordans.
Wow.
Like I never really wanted to steal. You know what I mean? But I used to get guys.
Yeah, get the gab.
Right, because one guy owed me some money and he didn't have no money and he said that he could, and I told him I had this guy in 8th grade. I was capping for real.
I had a starter coat, a giant starter coat that I had to fight for in the streets.
Yeah, of course. Now
probably one of
that's
T.I.'s
the real
guys.
deal. Now
Yeah,
you
them
really,
starter coats was.
Yeah, I
starter
remember
coats and Jordans. You
Yeah,
had to.
I didn't have no Jordans. My parents didn't give me Jordans, but I had a starter coat.
You had to be a real one to have starter coats.
Yeah, I had to
have
fight a
starter coats and
couple
Jordans, man, in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was really capping them down, telling them, man, you know, I got this guy in 8th grade. Say, man, if I don't get my money, you know, he was like, no, listen, I don't have the money, but I got this starter coat.
Dang.
I stole it from the gym, so don't wear it here. But
At least he told you.
I know it, so I say, oh, so you can do that? How many more of these can you get?
Right.
So I took that starter coat and I sold it for $25. He only owed me $15. I'm 10 to the good. So I sold that starter coat for $25 and I told him, for every starter coat you give me, I give you $20.
Dang, and that's another hustle.
You see what I'm saying? So then I started, you know, taking starter coats from this school, selling them to people in my grandmama neighborhood who went to another school. And that was another,
Oh my God.
another stream of revenue for me. And the Jordans too. So Jordans, I would get 25 for Jordans and 20 for a
Now,
starter
Jordans,
coat.
they had to take them on somebody's feet, though, right?
No, because you know, you have to dress
You
out.
gotta change your
You have to
clothes.
dress out when you go to jail.
But you don't do that in New York, really. We didn't change our clothes. When I went to school in Florida,
Right.
we changed, but we didn't do
Okay,
that.
that's
in
what
New York.
I'm like. Okay, see,
Yeah,
in New
they
York,
ain't do that.
you had to take someone Jordans off. their
Yeah,
feet.
like give me your shit off your feet.
I never
Nah.
did that. I never did
That's
that.
real
But,
excessive.
so I went from that to on the way to the bus stop one day, I saw a dude, he was outside hustling. And I asked him what he was doing because he didn't go to my school. He's standing at my bus stop. He was like, man, I'm working. And so he kind of like showed me, pulled his pocket out, showed me some crack, and it was some dimes that you could bust down and make $30 off of them. So he said, you buy one of these, they call breakdowns, BDs. So you buy one of these for $10, you break it in 3 pieces, you sell each piece for $10, so you make $30 off it. I said, whoa, that's way better than my candy margin.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, wait a minute now. So I'm making like 25 to 40% profit off of, you know, off of my larceny ring. My starter coats and my joints.
That's what it was.
You were an organized criminal in 6th grade.
I'm making like 80 to 120% off of my candy operation. This is 300% profit.
Wow.
Or 200%.
And you were cleaning it through your candy distribution too, right?
But
you
it
can't
wasn't
argue
long.
with the math.
You can't.
I was like, man, I'm spending 100 on candy, making 120. I'm spending 200 on this, making like 280, 300. I'm spending 200 here, making 600. Yeah, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got in the drug game.
At 6th grade?
Yeah.
Wow.
End of 6th grade, going into 7th, kind of like the end of 6th grade.
6th grade, I was about to have my first kiss on my senior trip.
I crossed that bridge somewhere 5th grade.
Yeah, they were selling crack when I was in Brooklyn in 6th grade. Classmates were selling crack at that time.
Right.
So it was something that it was matter of fact, it was a very young thing.
It was like a teenage job.
Yeah, it was like a teenage thing.
Do you guys need more whiskey?
I won't turn you down.
Yeah.
Because I got somebody that'll get it for you.
I won't
Let's do
turn
that.
you down.
Trap music has been criticized for glorifying some of the worst
Not
elements.
that much. Jesus.
He's trying to get you lit. Oh, it's a party.
I need a wheelbarrow out of here, man.
I need some too. You know, me as a, I get labeled too.
Right.
I get labeled as a conscious artist, but I don't get the same criticisms.
Right.
It's a different beast altogether.
Right.
Explain why. I know, but make it dummy proof. Why the criticisms of trap music, especially in the era of where people will pay money to see a movie on Netflix or a Hollywood movie that glorifies sex, that literally glorifies sex and violence without any redeeming value. They won't judge that, but they'll judge music made by people who are using the music as a means to get out of a situation.
Well, what I will do, because I can't really justify or I can't explain nor excuse why they feel how they feel.
Understood.
You dig? But what I can justify, explain, and excuse is where we come from.
Okay.
And why. Of course, it's been criticized. I understand that people don't understand it. However, we are refugees of the war on drugs. You dig what I'm saying? When you understand that we didn't put ourselves in that situation, none of us really had much of a choice than to walk outside and be bombarded with crack, cocaine, and heroin, and you know, the things that and guns and violence. We fell into that just like, people from the 70s fell into weed and mushrooms. You dig? When you understand that the Contra scandal was an operation that was intended to cripple and destroy people of color in the underserved inner city areas of society. That is why cocaine was turned into crack. That ain't nothing that no nigga just stumbled on.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying? I don't give a damn what Snowfall say. Didn't no nigga just stumble on that. It's a part, it's a couple steps. I love the show.
That's a good show. I enjoy it.
I love the show. I enjoy it, but
you know movies and TV.
that shit was made in a laboratory.
Yeah, you know.
That shit was made in a laboratory. You dig what I'm saying? Ain't no nigga just got that. Oh, let me fuck up some cocaine and some water. And let's see what happens.
Soda.
Let's smoke it.
I got
Let
baking
it dry. Man, come on, man. Ain't nobody did no shit like that. So that was put there to destroy us. We endured it. We survived it, and this is our celebration.
Exactly.
Look at us as war veterans, okay?
Veterans of the drug war.
Yeah, veterans of the war on drugs. If we went out to Iraq, I'm sure there were heinous things we had to do to survive in order to make it back. I'm sure there were people who died to the left or the right of us. I'm sure there was some tragedies unspeakable that we shouldn't be proud of that we had to do in order to make it back, but we made it back.
That's right.
And when we make it back, if 2 or 3 of us get in a room together, we're going to tell our stories.
And make the best of the
And
situation.
when Veterans Day come up, we gonna celebrate because that's our day. I can't tell no soldier who's gone off to fight and kill for a reason that they didn't even know about, and I may not agree with. I can't tell them not to celebrate because that's them celebrating the fact that they survived their horrendous conditions and they endured their pain. I can't tell them how to celebrate that.
Word up.
This is our pain. These were our horrendous conditions that we endured, we overcame. They did not break us, and even more so, we found a way to make millions off of it. So you can't tell me how to celebrate my pain.
Now, speaking of making millions, that's an excellent point, brother. Excellent. Speaking of making millions, millions and billions are being made in the marijuana industry. And like you said, with the war on drugs, a lot of us went to jail. Some of us are still in jail over, just selling weed. A lot of us, black and brown people, took the chance of selling weed and creating a marijuana industry where there was none. And now,
we have historically been researching and developing this proof of concept that they are now making millions and billions off of. Absolutely.
but we locked out of it.
Absolutely.
How do you feel like we can get more involved in that?
I think that we have to push for minority inclusion the same way they did in Atlanta. Like, see, Atlanta is the way it is right now. It is a result of the stands that Martin Luther King took. You know what I'm saying? We still feeling the ripples of the success that came from the sacrifices that Martin Luther King, Andrew Young, Joseph Lowry, Maynard Jackson. You know what I'm saying? So the sacrifices that they made. For instance, I give you an example. Maynard Jackson became the first black mayor of Atlanta in '72, I believe. Okay. This was, I think Martin Luther King died in '68, I believe. 60. I'm very bad with dates. Okay. So Martin Luther King died. The next election, after Martin Luther King died, there was a black mayor elected, okay? This black mayor, he rebuilt the airport. And in rebuilding the airport, there were budgets and contracts to be given out for people to render certain services. And usually, people like us would be blocked out of that as far as contractors is concerned, right? We could come work maybe, but we'd be blocked out of that. Mayor Jackson said, okay, who we gonna get to pull these runways and deal with these? He said, I want people of color, black people, to pour the runways. I think they were down, because I think he got down to all, and he saw that there were no black people who had contracts. And they said, well, there are no black people who pour runways. He said, well, hell, that ain't nothing but some asphalt. It's black people that pour asphalt. Get some goddamn asphalt pours out here and pour the damn runway. And so that's how minority inclusion began in Atlanta. And ever since then, anything you doing in Atlanta, I don't give a damn what it is, you gonna have to have black people involved, whether it's building the Mercedes-Benz Dome, or whether it's
building new housing complexes.
Or housing complexes, or either clubs and restaurants.
Right. This is interesting.
But we have to do that on a national level.
Yeah.
Marvel is in Atlanta, right? And you like the realest nigga in the Marvel universe. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm like the most quiet motherfucker.
yeah,
in the
you know what I'm
Mob
saying?
Deep, like.
What you just said to me, David Banner, who's a good friend of mine, and I
Mm-hmm.
speak to him often. What you just broke down to me, a week ago, he broke down to me verbatim. He was talking about his peoples that deal with the airports.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was telling him I was in Atlanta because I was in Atlanta. I seen you at the Dave Chappelle thing.
Right,
And
right.
I'd
Oh, I
gone
was
to the
there
mall
too.
to buy some clothes. You was there too. She was
Yeah.
at the show too.
Okay.
We're going to the mall to buy some. I went to Saks
Alright.
by across the street from the in Buckhead, right?
Right.
And man, there's some fancy ass black people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Yeah.
now
It's
these
so
are some,
inspiring.
It looked like Wakanda in that motherfucker.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
it
saying? I'm
is.
like, man, these motherfuckers in Atlanta, like, this
Motherfucker
like,
forgot they
it's-
black.
this really, you know what I'm saying?
You'll be riding down the expensive neighborhoods and you're seeing black
Yeah.
families, black fathers.
Sure.
It's amazing.
Right, and Banner was breaking down, you know, how there's more black millionaires in Atlanta than any place else.
It is.
And he said it's because of the construction and because of the contracts with the shit like the airport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
See, because
understand
you
what
know,
I'm
now you do know that even back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like there were hustlers that had the money. Okay. So the civil rights were funded by by hustlers. Of course, you know what I'm saying? Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and all them did their thing. But the day-to-day, boots on the ground, shit that had to be done. Like Hosea Williams would go in to holler at the number runners, the gamblers, and you know what I'm saying? Motherfucker had to goddamn put it together and handle it. Now, in the same right, in exchange for that, when bills were passed and when things were happening, those hustlers knew what was going on. So they knew to buy this land right here that they could go take their cash money to get. Like over there where the Mercedes-Benz Dome is right now, man, that was like, those were number runners and, you know what I'm saying, like gambling house owners and folk who sold reefer and shit before Arthur Blank and all them, they had to buy that from hustlers.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So most of the land in Atlanta, at least on the side right now, that's being expanded, gentrified, that money came from hustlers. That money went to hustlers.
So you're well known as a hustler, and this is a lot of gain everybody getting.
Yes, thank you for teaching us.
Yeah, you have a construction
Oh,
company
man, well-
amongst other things, right?
Yeah.
You also have V Live.
No.
No? That's
no,
over?
No. I don't own no strip club. It's illegal.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
a felon. But I you know, there are some constituents of mine that did do a deal with a dude. And because they are my brothers, you know what I'm saying, when people mistake because they see me there so much or because of my close association, when they mistake it, I don't correct them.
It's like the gang laws in LA. Like you know people in the hood, and then you get affiliated with the gang. You don't have to be banging at all.
I guess so.
Yeah.
That's a large stretch.
I bring that up because I try to make a segue to talk about, like, I was in Atlanta for that show, and I seen a billboard for Freaknik, and I'm like, that don't look like how it was, because I was there back in the day.
Freaknik
you know.
was the first festival.
Yeah.
I heard about
You know what I'm
just
saying?
Freaknik was like the
naked
first.
girls.
It was the first black festival to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Kappa Beach party
Yeah.
in Galveston, Texas. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Daytona, the Daytona Beach thing,
South
or
Beach.
Jack the Rapper, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so Freaknik was like that.
But Atlanta
It just
is-
kind of got out of hand.
Yeah, it did. I was around
know
for some
what
of
I
that.
mean?
But Atlanta, not just Freaknik, but with the strip clubs, has become the capital for being free.
Yeah.
When it comes to that type of work, when it comes to, like, you know, women just being free with they bodies and
Well, that's kind of that's the internet you talk about. That ain't necessarily Atlanta. You know, the internet did that.
Atlanta does have amazing strip clubs. I've
Yes.
frequented a couple,
Yeah.
and great food. Mm-hmm. You know.
I mean, you know, like all of that stuff, that culture, all that stuff comes from hustling back in the day. You know what I mean? Magic City is one of, and Blue Flame,
Oh, I love that place.
two of the
Just kidding.
oldest, most prestigious, most legendary establishments in the city. The same guys who owned it when it opened are the same guys that own it right now. You know what I'm saying? That's generational wealth that has been created by these modest, young, black entrepreneurial businessmen, and they kept it in the family. They didn't sell it out to the big corporations. They, you know what I mean? They still plugging away, getting their money, their twos and fews. They building is paid for. They've reached legendary status, and they still, you know, that's like Atlanta is a place where, you know how they say 6 degrees of separation? Atlanta is a 2 phone call town for no matter what it is you need to get done. It's 2 phone calls. That you call me and say, hey, Tip, think of something. What would you be trying to do?
Trying to go to the Trap Music Museum.
Okay. Yeah, that turned into 1 phone call.
That's 1 phone call.
Let's say if you're trying to get some tickets to the game, you want to go to the Falcon game. Hey, Tip, I'm in town. I want to go to the Falcon game. Okay, well, damn, I don't have any tickets. But hold on, I know who might have some. And I call somebody. Hey, here go my guy. He got the tickets. Y'all talk about the tickets, and you get it done. That happens whether it's some tickets or a liquor license or you trying to get a contract at the airport. It don't matter. That's the way Atlanta works. You see what I'm saying? If you get to somebody who can get you to somebody, then you can get anything done in my city.
You and A$AP Rocky, you guys are close, right?
Yeah, that's my buddy.
So how do you feel about the whole situation that's going on?
Well, first of all, I think, you know what I'm saying, he need to be freed immediately. I believe that he's been held in inhumane conditions, and I feel that there's been enough visible evidence to show that he did not institute any aggression or violence.
Yeah.
He was being responsive to being accosted.
And even showed some restraint.
Yeah,
restraint.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel they all showed incredible amounts of restraint.
I agree with that. I've been in a situation where, and I know you have, where the celebrity and the fame brings people feel like they want to bring a certain level of aggression, and because you don't know the level of threat, you have to treat it with a certain level to protect you and yours and your family.
And I don't. You know, I've gotten better in my, you know, in my most recent years. But I haven't always responded that way. You know, well, brings me to my celebration of the day. I was just dismissed from a case where I was being sued by a gentleman who says that someone beat him up in Florida. I don't know what happened, but he admitted that he was the antagonizer and he was the aggressor, and that he left bruised and beat up.
Let's clap it up for winning.
Yes, amen.
Yeah, there's videos.
I hate that. I don't know how that happened or what became of it, but I wish him the absolute best as he proceeds elsewhere.
Right.
I mean, this ain't the meal ticket.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, and it happens with me. Like, I feel like if you a certain age in hip hop, you know, you've been in the prison system before, and so I think just the way you move, not just because of your personal experience, but we all stand up to mass incarceration, and it's not just an American thing; it's a global thing. We all stand up. We all look to try to
inequalities.
That's absolutely right.
Discrimination.
So for me, it's not even about whether or not the conditions of where he's staying is bad or not.
No.
It's the principle of the matter.
It is.
You know, and
it's the fact that he didn't do nothing.
Right. And if you've seen that video, you understand that
he ain't do nothing.
what it was.
Right.
There's large segments of our community right now who are upset at A$AP Rocky. And because, and I'm going to read something that he said. Now, I consider Rocky a friend of mine as well.
Right.
This is something he said over Ferguson years ago. 2016, he said this. I'm somebody who went to Ferguson. He was asked by Time Out New York about the Ferguson protest and Black Lives Matter. He said, why? Because I'm black. Every time something happens because I'm black, I got to stand up. What the fuck am I, Al Sharpton now? I live in fucking Soho, Beverly Hills. I can't relate. There are people that say, and I personally, I'm going to put this out there. I feel like this is off code. There are people who get off code and say because he said this statement that they don't agree with, a statement I also don't agree with, that somehow he's deserving of what's happening to him, that somehow it's karma. What do you have to say to people who feel like that?
I feel like if you look for an excuse to not support someone when they need your support, then you never would have supported them anyway. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, you know, that's of a vindictive nature, and vengeance is of the Lord. You dig what I'm saying?
No doubt.
I think, do I agree with the statement? Hell no, shit was stupid. But his stupid statement ain't gonna keep me from being the stand-up guy that I am and supporting what I know is right in my heart.
That's right.
You dig what I'm saying? Now, when we get him here, we could talk to him about that at that point.
Once we get him
to
out.
see if he feels the same way. I very highly doubt he will. True enough, it is a lesson, but it's not for us to teach the lesson. We don't teach the lesson, the universe teaching the lesson. That means the universe did what it did. We must do what we do, and then we'll talk about it when everybody get back at 100%.
Word up.
You know what I
Exactly,
mean?
because nothing's going to change if every time somebody does something wrong, you just condemn them. And obviously, I don't agree with the statements either, but I was going back and forth in a Facebook group because people were saying, oh, I hope he gets 15 years or throw away the key. And I'm like, why would you ever wish that on anybody? Period.
Right, like street
Good
code.
thing
Street code is
that they wishes don't matter.
yeah. Isn't
You know
it
what I'm
like
saying?
you're
That's
not
the best
supposed to
thing
wish
about it.
jail on your worst enemy?
Nah, you don't wish jail or
Death.
disease.
Right, no,
well, you know.
If someone killed somebody in my family, that's the only time I'm gonna wish death
I
on
mean,
somebody.
man, look,
Personally.
you know, it
But-
get rough out there.
It does. It does. So let me segue to this.
Yeah.
You have in recent years become bigger than just a rapper or actor, but also I feel like you're a curator of the culture, and you're as not, I'm not going to say an elder statesman, you know, but you definitely the unk.
Right
You know what I'm
on.
saying? Like the OG.
I go for that.
You know what I'm saying? With social justice, like I said, you a curator of the culture. People don't know that you put up your own money for bail. 23 nonviolent inmates, DeKalb County. How do you feel like the criminal justice system?
And and also again for Father's Day.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, again for Father. I mean, man, look. I'm just doing my little part, and I ain't really doing it for no real recognition. I ain't really doing it like to be seen, and then I just feel like, and to be honest with you, ever since I was able to do more, I've done more. Even when it was just me, a guy nobody knew, when I had I'm Serious, who went and rented a U-Haul, filled it up with turkeys and food, and went out to the projects and passed them out, real Nino Brown style. Or a guy who filled up a U-Haul with toys on Christmas, drove them to the projects and passed them out. Nobody knew who I was. I was just a guy with a U-Haul. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and as my means expanded, so did my contributions. And now, I mean, I done gave out enough toys and turkeys. You know, now it's time to do things that are really meaningful, like scholarships and, you know, trying to show people how to be financially responsible, how to build wealth for themselves, and I think freeing them in a time where the system is working just as hard against them as they are working for themselves. You know what I mean? Before, when people asked for assistance or when people asked for help, we thought they were just begging or being lazy. Now motherfucker really need it. You know what I mean? So I just try, man, you know, do the best that I can to subsidize in whatever way possible.
Right.
I just want to say thank you because like our culture is always like talking about like, oh, well, why is T.I. not doing something or why is Jay-Z not doing something? And you guys are doing things and it doesn't have to be like broadcast, but if everybody does their little part, then, you know, that's going to work together for things to start changing. And I have been seeing changes.
Thank you. I mean, man, listen, because I'm going to say this to you because I've heard you say this a few times in this sit down. You keep talking about what people saying. The old motherfucker gonna say shit whether we doing shit perfect or not. They already got, what they say negatively is more of a reflection of how they feel about themselves. You know what I mean? That's what I understood. Like, I used to be moved by what a motherfucker say. Like, you know, I used to say shit like, man, you know, I die for my respect. And then I start like a old head in the joint was like, well, how much sense does that make, right? You done tricked yourself out of life because of what? Man, they did respect me. Then he said, well, let me ask you this. What is the value of the respect coming from a non-respectable person? How much value should you, if he don't respect you and he ain't respectable, don't nobody on the block respect him, everybody like, you know, showing him, why do you care about whether or not he respects you? You mean to tell me you'll lose your life for that respect? You know what I mean? And that kind of, it refocused my perspective. So I know that, man, motherfucker gonna talk, man, just because they got a mouth. Some people talk because they have something to say, and some people talk because they just feel they have to say something. You know what I mean? So my advice to you from this point forward is, remember, if you live for the cheers, you will die by the boos. So you just got to be goddamn even tempered, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. You dig what I'm saying?
Yes.
A lot of jewels and gems, brother.
Man,
I'm trying, man.
I've been
I'm
taking notes. Taking notes, baby.
I'm trying to give her all I got. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like her generation gonna need that shit, just like we did.
Absolutely. Tell me about this movie about Flint and the water crisis.
Well, it's in partnership with UPROXX Entertainment, which is Will Smith's production company. They also did ATL, and it's a fictional story around the water crisis. You know, it's a gentleman who is of the community, who has changed his life around, but has a reputation as something far different from what he represents right now. And he is called upon to get to the bottom of some missing people. Okay. And as he does this, the more he uncovers, he discovers the water crisis.
I seen what Jaden Smith was doing out there with the water situation.
It's definitely noble.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And the movie, I would assume that the movie is not just for entertainment, but it's also to bring awareness and to help.
It's definitely to bring awareness, and to show how serious it is, and just what I'm saying, I feel like their story needs to be told. They deserve to be heard. And there's a lot of people been reaching out to me on Instagram and social media. Listen, it's not time right now to start casting people, but we have every intention to film in Flint.
Okay, so this
and cast in Flint.
Yeah, because people gonna have them questions.
Yeah, I get it, but sometimes you can fuck up an opportunity just by being too aggressive. If you squeeze soap too tight in the shower, it slip out your hand. So
like in Atlanta where they got them billboards for Tyler Perry.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I just feel like on some real shit, don't walk in with your baggage from the last, like, talking about, well, last time they did something, they did it like this, and y'all ain't going, whoa, listen. What you can do is talk yourself out of an opportunity, or you could just be cool, and when you hear about casting, y'all come on through. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Now, you have stressed family in your music, in your public life. You've put your family on a reality show. You've lived in a very public way. Do you have any advice? Because people don't even know how to maintain marriages and families without being famous.
None of us do.
Even without being famous.
Don't think I got no goddamn instruction manual. This shit is...
Instructions is different, but you definitely, like, you and your wife have been an example to people. For people who going through some things and who still show love to each other.
Man, we happy to represent that in the community and for the culture. And sometimes that shit is enough to keep us together. You know what I'm saying? She'll be sick of my shit, I'd be sick of hers. But I feel like we got a whole nother set of children that we got to explain this shit to. We be like, man, fuck it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't even feel like facing the nation with this shit.
No doubt.
You know what I'm saying? So, we appreciate y'all and we value that. But man, we really never set out to do this or be this or represent this. We really just wanted to tell our story. It's just that more humbling and flattering that our story, it motivated and inspired so many other people, you know what I mean, to walk in a similar path. I mean, to be congratulated for doing something, I'm like, this is the only time I've been congratulated for doing some shit that I feel like I was always gonna do anyway.
Right.
Like, man, you know, being there for them kids, man.
Right. Us men, we get props for a lot of things that we supposed to just do naturally.
And we got to stop being surprised at black men being around
But
their
I'm like,
kids too.
what would you saying as opposed to what?
Yeah.
So you saying if I wasn't there for him, you still fuck with me, you just wouldn't come up here and congratulate me? Or, I mean, like,
That's real talk, bro.
I mean, I always wanted to be a father. Like, this is the best shit. This is the dopest shit I feel like I'm able to do.
Ain't it grand?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a father. I always wanted to be like, you know, a cool dad to my sons and my daughters. I always wanted to be like my son's first hero, my daughter's first love. And I never anticipated this kind of acclaim from it. You dig what I'm saying?
I do.
Back when I wanted to do it, like I was in probably 9th grade trying to have a baby.
What?
Yes, sir.
Well, you started your business at 6th grade, so I'm sure.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, right? I was taking care of my mama, like early on, paying bills and helping out, and I was the man of the house, and so I assumed that responsibility. I was like, well, if I'm doing this for my moms, I may as well have a kid. And, you know, luckily for me, it wasn't until I was like 18, 19 to when I actually, and as soon as I found out that my first child's mom was pregnant before he was born, I had a record deal, an apartment, I stopped selling dope. My whole life changed. And from that point forward, it's almost like every time I dropped the album, I had a baby. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
So as I assumed more esteem and acclaim in hip hop, my family expanded. So it's like it grew with me.
That's love, bro. I have one more question.
Okay.
You the king of the South.
Indubitably.
You claimed it. You owned it. You stated it. You made it happen.
Unequivocally.
Yes. Scarface is running city council, right?
Right.
Willie D running.
Absolutely.
Right? Can you run for mayor, city council,
No.
anything you not think about?
Absolutely not. No. I'm in the for-profit business.
Okay.
Talib.
Okay.
You understand
So
me?
ain't no mayor tip.
No, sir. I have no interest.
No
Okay.
interest.
I have
You
no
feel like
interest nor intention.
It's more strategic the way you moving now.
Nah, man. See,
You
look,
can do a
bro.
lot for the city still, though.
I do, and I will continue to do all
Like
I
you the
can
mayor,
for
like
the
the mayor,
city.
the mayor of the streets.
I mean, to be honest with you, you heard of Herman Russell? I want to be Herman Russell.
Okay.
Herman
Put it
Russell
down.
is the largest black developer in Atlanta history. He built the first dome. You know what I'm saying? He built like a lot of those official buildings down there, Herman Russell. And I want to be the next Herman Russell. And Herman Russell, he had a relationship with every mayor, in, like no matter from Maynard Jackson to Ambassador Andrew Young to Bill Campbell to Shirley Franklin. Every mayor he had a relationship with. He helped the city. He helped expand and build the airport. He had all this stuff going on, but he never had to deal with politics. See, one thing about it, right? As you could tell from the story I told you about my entrepreneurship, I have a thing for making money.
Yes, indeed.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, indeed.
So I don't need to be anything where I can get in trouble for making legitimate money.
I feel that.
And you need to be your
If
own
somebody
boss.
come to me, sit at the table and find a legitimate way for us to make legitimate money, if I'm the mayor, I could get in trouble for that.
Right.
I don't need that job because I'm
Right.
going to get in trouble every time.
Right.
I don't need that job until I get enough money to where I say, fuck it. And I ain't got there yet. Because, you know what I'm saying, for me, it ain't really even about the money. It's about the success. It's about the victories. You know what I'm saying? I just love to build. I love to think things, create it, and envision it in my mind and see it manifest. And I ain't ready to get that up yet, but I will help whatever way I can and empower and support whoever is the best candidate for the position. I myself, not so much. I help strategize, but I can't do it.
No doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, the Rubber Band Man, the Grand Hustler, the King of the South. Give it up for Tip.
Man, right on. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank y'all for having me.
I loved it.
Thank you all.